I'll let them go ahead and do that.
To start off, I'd just like to introduce myself to some of the new members who might not know me. My name is Bill Todd. I became a member here in Parkview November 2005, November 2004 is when I got saved. And I have my wife and we have our 4 children. But before I go much further, I want to thank the church for the financial assistance and help. And there's some people that gave some money financially to our trip. We appreciate that. This is, just to give a little bit of a background information, this was my 6th trip to the Dominican Republic on a missions trip, and the 4th for our family. Some people might wonder why we picked the Dominican Republic as a location for our missions work, and there are several answers to that, but the obvious is that my wife is from there. So I went to the DR in 2011. In February with Midwestern Baptist Bible College. I was with them, and while I was there, I was asked to come back in August from a gentleman from our church, and I accepted the opportunity, and we went and did a solo trip. It was just me and him, and we traveled around the country. We went to a city called Pedernales, which you'll see here in the presentation shortly. It's on the border of Haiti. And while I was there, after the VBS program that we did, the pastor there asked if I could come back in the following year. Well, I wasn't really expecting that question, and so I didn't know what to say, but I told him I would pray about it. Well, the next year I married a girl from the Dominican Republic, and so it's been our desire to go every 2 years for missions work and also vacation. I'm going to skip some other stuff, but if we could start with the first slide. I can get this right. That's the Dominican Republic there. For those of you who are not familiar with geography, that's basically straight down from Michigan is Florida. The southeast is the Dominican Republic, and it does share an island with Haiti. It's about 2,000 miles southeast from us, in between Cuba and Puerto Rico. Well, we left by plane on Wednesday morning, and my daughter got us there nice and safe, and we got there about the early afternoon. Some of you might be familiar with the Dominican Republic for their beaches. They're well known for them. Of course, they're a tourist destination. Another interesting fact about the Dominican Republic is Christopher Columbus is buried there. And if you look behind me, you see that picture. It is the picture of his resting place. The building where they believe he is kept is in the shape of a cross. Now, to be fair, some people believe that he was buried in Spain, but since I'm married to a Dominican woman, I'm going to go with the Dominican Republic. It is also interesting to note that the oldest Catholic church in the Americas is also there in the Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic is a predominantly Catholic church, or Catholic country. As you walk and drive around, you might see a man like that, and you may notice this man is a little bit unique. There's a lot of crime in the Dominican Republic, and so men like that are stationed to discourage the crime. And if you get caught committing a crime, you might end up in a place with cement and bars. But that is actually a house. That is the ideal material the Dominicans want to use to build their houses, and structures like stores and buildings and things like that to withstand the hurricanes and storms that come. However, many of them cannot afford those types of materials, and so they resort to something more economical like this. The Dominican Republic is known as a third world country, and some houses are built out of just simply plank wood and corrugated steel or tin. And I believe that's a good time to say we should be thankful for what we have in the United States of America. So that's the inside of the house, and that's kind of like a neighborhood that we saw on one of the trips that we were on. The first weekend of our trip, we went to Balarona. This is a port city about 2.5 hours from the capital, which is Santo Domingo. We visited a pastor named Paul Ernesto and his family. I met this man on a trip previously. This church that he is the pastor of was started by an American missionary some time ago, and he took it over. Let me see. On Sunday morning, we taught the children, as you can see, and here we gave a lesson. We gave an opportunity also for them we asked questions during the lesson, and then allowed them to play a game at the end. Now we do this because with translation it can be difficult to keep their interest, so we use different tactics like that. Let me see, so that's the children that we're working with there. Then this is the game that we played with them, or the ones we picked for the game. This is the Sunday evening service. It is a fairly small church. It is up in the mountain a little bit, in a very, very poor region. But this is Sunday evening where we preach the evening service, my translator and myself. And that's the church there, the congregation. Monday we headed about 3 hours further west to that city called Pedernales, which I had talked to you about. I went on my second trip, as a solo trip. This city does border Haiti. And this is a church called the Iglesia Bautista Cristiana. Here we met up with a gentleman named Pastor Andreas, and that's his wife there. And this is, again, like I said, the church I mentioned in the introduction. Here's a group of people that came with us to work in this trip. This part of the trip was more of the main focus, I guess. There was a lot more children and a lot more people needed for assistance. So everyone in the picture that you see there, we brought with us except for the pastor and his wife. So that's my father-in-law, mother-in-law, another pastor and his wife, and the other friend that's also a translator, my wife, their kids, and our kids in the front. This is the inside of the church on the first night of Vacation Bible School, probably 50 children or so. But as the days go by, the program did grow, and we don't necessarily have the resources over there that we have over here. But our program usually starts off with songs, and my wife and the pastor's wife will review a verse. And then in this case, the program grows a little more. There's my wife and the other one. And so it started to get quite a bit more children. In this case, we gave a flannel graph lesson through translation. This was on the life of Joseph this year. Each lesson does have a clearly presented plan of salvation and the gospel preached through it. Questions are asked during the lesson to engage the children once again. Simple questions like, what is sin? Who is a sinner? Things like that to get the minds of the children going. And these areas that we go to, they're some of them for different reasons don't have a lot of the knowledge of the Word of God. So we keep some of the questions and the message very basic for them. So that's a flannel graph that we used. There's more of the children. We often give blow pops and things like that throughout the lesson, again, to keep the children and the audience engaged. Now, as you can see, with all the heat, traveling, planning and preparing and dealing with many children, people get tired. However, often when the lesson is over and the invitation is given, we do see a reward for our efforts. Usually the way it works, we have so many children that we need to use the workers to work with not individual children, but groups of individual children at a time. After the invitation, we have a time of games, and in this case, we were playing a game called balloon volleyball. After the game is over, we give a snack with some iced tea usually. And at the end of the program, on the last night, I think we had around 150. So it went from 50 to 150 in those short few days. In the next two pictures, this one and the next one, you might notice a girl with a big smile and a big bag of candy. And we used the idea that we had gotten from Vacation Bible School here at Parkview before. We get a piece of cardboard, probably about this big by that big, and we tape candy bars, Skittles, Sunbursts, things like that on it. And we use that as a motivation for the children throughout the days to invite more children to come. And in this case, this girl did not make it to the first 2 days. But she found out about I think she knew from the year or 2 years before about the candy. And she worked really hard on the second night. And on the third night, she brought 29 visitors.
Amen.
Praise God.
Yes.
The next day, we traveled back to the Capitol. I thought this was an interesting picture. Obviously, we use buses and things like that for our transportation here in the United States. But they often use motorcycles, and so I thought I'd get that one. The next day we did travel back to the Capitol. We took a couple days off, and then we connected with Pastor Robert Torado. Some of you are probably familiar with him. Our church has been supporting him for 15 or 20 years. And we went to do a Vacation Bible School program with him. He contacted me before we came and asked if we could help. Well, his church is kind of like a second story level building, and it's really just an apartment. So if you see it from behind me, you can see the cabinets. There's a sink there. That would be like the kitchen. In front of me would be the living room. To the right, there's like 2 rooms and 2 small rooms and a bathroom. But as it turned out, when we went there, the week that we got there, I believe, Pastor Torado had a stroke. And so we got back from Pedernales, and we found out that he was not going to be able to assist us much, or his wife. So it was kind of my wife, myself, and we had another individual that helped us, I think, and then another day there were some others. So it was a little bit more challenging, but God blessed, and we saw, I think, about 30 kids come to this service on different times. And there's the children, of course, playing the game there. The program was Tuesday morning, Wednesday night, and then Thursday morning also. And that's to get, again, the kids playing games. One of the nights, something that happens in the Dominican Republic quite frequently is that the electricity goes out. So Wednesday night service, before the service even started, we were in dark, and we preached with, well, my tablet, which gives a little bit of light, and then we used cell phones, and my translator was always putting the cell phone on his Bible. But it was a blessing. The electricity, of course, came on about 10 minutes after the service. We were in the 3 churches for about 10 days, traveling and preaching and teaching. We were able to see many come forward to be dealt with. It was the main focus, of course, but the second focus was just we wanted to be a blessing to the preachers and pastors that are over there. A lot of them kind of are out of the way. They don't really get a whole lot of attention, and so, like specifically that gentleman Valerona, he's kind of almost a little bit on his own, probably discouraged at times. So we want to be a blessing to try to encourage and be a motivation. And if anyone is interested, we're planning to go in 2 years, and you want to go on the trip, we can investigate and talk about that. Again, thank you for the church for your prayers and support. I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Jeremiah.
You never change. You are the God you say you are. When I'm afraid, you calm and still my beating heart. You stay the same. When hope is just a distant thought, you take my pain and you lead me to the cross. What love is this? You gave your life for me and made a way for me to know you. And I confess you're always enough for me. You're all I need. I look to you. I see the skies upon your hands. You hold the truth that when I can't, you always can. I'm standing here beneath the shadow of the cross. I'm overwhelmed that I keep finding open arms. What love is this? You gave your life for me and made a way for me to know you. And I confess you're always enough for me. You're all I need. Jesus, in your suffering, you were reaching. You thought of me. Jesus, in your suffering, you were reaching. You thought of me. What love is this? You gave your life for me and made a way for me to know you. And I confess you're always enough for me. You're all I need. What love is this? You gave your life for me and made a way for me to know you. And I confess you're always enough for me. Always enough for me.
Can you see me? Oh, the lights are reversed, aren't they? Who has met me before tonight? One. You met me before, brother? Where?
That was Brother Dwayne's church.
Don't remember. Okay, well, who has not met me before tonight? Where have you been? I've lived in America all my life and you haven't met me. That is amazing. I am from Ohio. To be specific, Columbus, Ohio. Columbus? Did I say Columbus? O-H? Not one? Who's a Buckeye? Not one person. Wow. I pastored Central Baptist Church there in Columbus for 30 years, and you never came to visit me. And I've come all the way to visit you tonight. Now, we're going to have a good time. I need about 30 minutes, and then we have a 6-minute DVD, which will follow at the end. And my presentation will be the sermon tonight, because usually the presentation takes about 30 minutes, and my shortest message is 45 minutes. Oh, I hear everybody just groaning. So I will keep to that the best I can. I can barely see the clock. It looks to me like that says 6:15 back there. Does that say 6:15? I'm trying to get myself as much time as I can. Well, I also am a graduate of Ohio State University. Where's the love? I was there from 1970 to 1974 during the Woody Hayes era when he and Bo were battling it out. Now, I have to admit, I did watch the Penn State game in Michigan the other night, and I really thought Michigan was the better team. Yeah, there you go. And I think that your coach is laying a snare, a trap for the Buckeyes by losing these games, so we don't take you seriously at the end of the year. And I believe it is in your house here. So I'll be thinking about all of you folks that I met tonight, and we'll see what takes place there. I was born in Ohio. I was born in the holy city of Ohio. Anybody know the holy city of Ohio? Cleveland! Well, I'm really striking out. That's 2 strikes now. Okay, so I'm not going to brag any more about Ohio. I graduated from Ohio State, and I had a teaching degree, and I wanted to teach math, and I wanted to coach. Why did I like math? I have no clue. God just gives us gifts in our life, and we like what we're good at. So I wanted to teach math, and I wanted to coach. Why did I want to coach? Because winning is fun, right? Who likes to lose? Where's that loser? Is there one? Not one? Nobody likes to lose. Well, I wanted to do that, so I graduated. I had a job lined up there in the greater Columbus area in one of the schools. Then God called me to preach. So I left Columbus, Ohio, and went to Springfield, Missouri to get my theology degree at Baptist Bible College. Graduated from there, and while I was going there, I thought, boy, what a waste of those 4 years at Ohio State. All that money I spent, all that time spent, why didn't God just call me to preach when I graduated? And I could have gone straight to Bible college and skipped all the rest. When I graduated, I went back to Columbus, took over the downtown historic Central Baptist Church, stayed 30 years. We started a Christian school, and guess what I taught? Math. And guess who coached some of the teams at the Christian school? I did. God knew exactly what He was doing with His will for my life. I just didn't understand it till some time later. Well, as I said, we stayed 30 years, and I pastored at the end of the golden era of the independent Baptist movement. And what I mean by that is everything every fundamental pastor touched turned to gold. Seems now that our movement is kind of staggering, like the knockout punches hit, and so many churches are having a very serious challenge even maintaining. And so with the TRACT League, I'm trying to get tracts into churches' hands because we just don't want you to be prayer warriors. We want you to be gospel tract warriors as well. Fellowship Tract League started in 1978. It is in its 41st year. It's anniversary this year. And it was started by Brother Wash Pennington under the ministry of the Fellowship Baptist Church. And a great ministry. It started in very humble beginnings. And it was his goal to put a gospel tract in everybody's hand on planet Earth. Now that is something to behold. Congregation was very small at that time, and I'm sure they grinned ear from ear. In the meantime, we're thinking in their head, what has our pastor just said? A tract in everybody's hand on the planet? From that humble beginning in 1978 until now, the Fellowship Tract League has now printed 4.9 billion gospel tracts and have given them away free of charge, including the shipping cost. Last year alone, shipping costs exceeded $100,000 that the Tract League paid. Now, why does the Fellowship Tract League give them away free, and including the shipping? That was Brother Pennington's philosophy, and that was his mission statement and his heart, that everybody could receive a gospel tract free of charge, including the shipping. And it is a ministry of faith. I was attracted to this ministry, and our church supported the TRACT League 29 of my 30 years. And at the end of the 30 years, when God moved me away from the pastorate, He moved me over to help out the Fellowship TRACT League and travel for them. When I stepped down as the pastor, we left the church and we went to a rival church on the other side of Columbus. Now, what do I mean by a rival church? Well, they had a Christian school, and we challenged them in every sports, fine arts competition. We had competition between the bus ministries. And understand how I say this. They were our rival, and it was flesh and blood every time there was an activity as to who would win. So lo and behold, of all places God leads me afterwards was that church. When I told my wife that, she said, "No way, I'm going to that church." Well, she did, we did, all of our kids did. And I've been helping in a Christian school for the last 10 years, because that still is my art, Christian education. But this year, I felt like the Lord wanted me to start traveling full-time for the TRACT League. So we are in the process of raising our support. When I stepped away from teaching, you know, when you step away from any position, you also step away from that salary. So pray about taking us on for support. We travel, I've gone now 250 plus straight Sundays for the TRACT League, morning and evening. That's a lot of traveling. That's a lot of churches not to have any holes in my schedule. A lot of time spent on the phone call, getting referrals, emailing, mailing letters, begging, twisting preachers' arms and everything else I can twist to get in there. And we've raised tens of thousands of dollars for the TRACT League, and they've printed so many tracts because of our ministry. When I joined up with the TRACT League, there were 5 other reps, but they all left very quickly afterward when I joined, because they couldn't afford to stay on the road, and they went back to the security of the pastorate, and God's will be done in everybody's life. With the tens of thousands of dollars that we have raised for the TRACT League, they have been able to keep giving tracts free all over the world. Next year at this time, we hope to pass the 5 billion mark. Now, folks, there's only 7 billion people on the planet, and next year will be 42 years, so in short 42 years, we will have printed enough tracts to give every 7 people you see anywhere in the world. We'll have printed enough tracts to give 5 of those 7 people a gospel tract. And the Fellowship Baptist Church is a smaller church than this church here tonight. When someone realizes that, they say, well, how in the world can a smaller church, have the biggest gospel tract printing ministry in the history of the world? We thought they must have been a mega church. How could a church smaller like that have printed so many tracts? Well, every once in a while I try to explain, and I stutter and stammer. Then I finally just throw my hands up. I said, I have no idea how they've done it. It must be all God. And it is. Someone says, well, I don't see any modern day miracles like the Bible. Have you visited the Fellowship TRACT League lately? And seen what that size church has accomplished for the glory of God. They added a second building addition, to add a second printing press, to keep up with the crush of orders that we have, and we're further behind than ever. There is such a clarion call around the world for our gospel tracts that we can't keep up. They do a minimum of 700 orders every week. That could be an order of 100, could be an order of 100,000. So we have no idea what the calls that come in. And we have 18 churches around America in the world that serve as mail center churches. And once we hit 700 orders, we email the rest of the orders out to these 18 churches, and they fill the orders. We ship them a pallet after pallet load of tracts, just a smaller amount than we have at the home front there, and they fill those orders, and then they have to promise that they'll ship them, so they have to have at least anywhere between $200 to $500 a month to pay the shipping of these tracts that go out, because we want everybody to agree with the mission statement of the founder of that church, where everything is free of charge. We do have a website, fellowshiptractleague.org. You can go on that. And I know you have a website. Does anybody keep the track of how many hits you get on your website? Looking back in the sound, nobody. You might want to do that. It's really interesting. It gives you an idea. I was in a large church that ran 1,000, and they kept track of theirs. They had 2,000 hits a month, and I thought, well, just 1% of 2,000 would be 20 adults or 20 families every month. Times 12 months, you kind of keep track of where your visitors are coming from. Well, the Fellowship TRACT League has a site, as I said. Now, buckle up when you hear this. You ready? They have 2 million hits a month from all over the world. And it keeps getting more because as our tracts go out in 90 foreign languages, the major languages of the world, what that means is that dialects that spring off the major language, they can also grasp what's in the tract. So 90 foreign languages, probably if you go back and look at your family tree where your people came from, you will probably find that we print in that language. So, and we have 80 topical tracts, and I have a lot of the tracts in the back table there, and you can pick up some of those. They're a wide variety, and we will mail them to you, and how much will they cost you? Nothing. You got that, right? Every Tuesday that you'll see on the DVD here, every Tuesday we have a work day from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. And I invite churches everywhere I go to drive down and be part of that. And you put together tracts that go in the right box to the right missionary of the right city, of the right country, of the right continent. We do not want Chinese tracts going to the Philippines or the Philippine tracts going to Russia. We have to. It's a ginormous job. And so we would love to have your church come down and visit and help. We'll feed you a nice meal. You say, well, that's probably about 4 or maybe 5 hours away. I don't know. It might be that. But I was in a church in Jacksonville, Florida on a Wednesday night, and they had a lot of people there. I think they were snowbirds from Ohio, Indiana, and that state up north. Oh, I mean Michigan. I just can't get away from that. You know, I'm true to my colors. 1,000 people there. And I invited them to drive all the way up to the Cincinnati area where the Church Fellowship Tract League and the church is located, and they all laughed at me. Now folks, I can take people laughing at me, and they laughed at me in a good way, like right, Brother Lapis, we're going to drive 14 hours or work 3 hours to get a meal and drive 14 hours back. Nice try. Well, you know what happened? About 2 years later, they sent a group up from their church all the way up to the Fellowship Tract League to help in the breaking apart of the tracts and getting the tracts in the right box. They had such a great time. They came the following summer as well. And I was in the same church this past February, and the pastor's sister said that she and her husband and 7 grandkids were going to take a road trip all the way up to the Tract League to help them again. They had such a blast. I was in a church in Supply, North Carolina, right on the coast. I invited them to come up, and they had the audacity to do the same thing that the other church in Florida did. They kind of laughed at me. We're going to drive like 9 hours to work 3 hours to get a meal. Nice try, Brother Lapis, but ain't going to happen. I know it's bad English, but you get the message there. So I said, okay, I tried. But see, once I give out the information, I just kind of stand back and wait. Because the Holy Spirit just squeezes the hearts of people about fulfilling the Great Commission and how the Fellowship Tract League can help you as an individual and collectively as a church fulfill the Great Commission, which is Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the othermost parts of the world. We can help you do just that. So I invited that church, and I just left it at that. I got an email from their secretary this past spring, and she said they were in the process of renting a Greyhound bus and bringing a minimum of 40 adults up to the Fellowship Tract League to help them on one of those Tuesday work days. What day of the week is that? Tuesday. What day did Wimpy tell Popeye he would pay him back? Some of you are laughing because you know it was Tuesday. In fact, I've been corrected many times. I think it was the second Tuesday of each month, something along that line. So you have that down, and we'd love to have the group. It'll change your life. Your DNA off your hands will touch a tract that somebody all over the world may end up getting and hearing about the gospel and getting saved. Well, I have this thing here. This used to be a roll of paper, and it was big and round. You'll see this in a DVD as well. And when it gets all rolled off, it prints 125,000 gospel tracts. That's a lot. This roll of paper costs $275. It prints 125,000 tracts. Is there a better investment anywhere that's heavenly minded? I don't think so. I often thought, well, the radio is the greatest thing. But you know, a lot of these dictatorship communist countries block the airwaves, and the radio station cannot penetrate that. Then I thought, well, maybe the internet's the greatest. Those countries can also block the Wi-Fi, the internet, where their people do not get. But they still haven't figured out a way to block gospel tracts on a person crossing the border that are handed on and on and on repeatedly. So when these say these 125,000 tracts go to the Philippines, we're told at least 4 people eat each tract. So now 4 times 125,000 is how many people are reached. Anybody know that? 500,000 people are reached from one roll of paper that costs $275. You don't even have to go. You don't have to put the tracts together. You don't have to pay the postage. We're just looking for people to buy the rolls of paper. We have other people who take care of the rest. When these go to northern India and Tibet, because there's really not a lot of reading material, they say now up in that area, 8 people will read each gospel tract. So, high school students, 8 times 125,000 is how many people are being reached. 1 million people are reached with the gospel of Christ from one roll of paper that cost a measly $275. There's a church in southern Ohio on the Ohio River, and the church has about 30 people in it, maybe 40 people at one time. It ran hundreds. But economy got bad and people got older and passed on and their children moved to bigger cities. So the church still has a real mission flavor, and they wanted to break my personal record that I have from a church in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that at the mission conference their church bought 17 rolls of paper. And it was a good-sized church, but this church in southern Ohio wanted to break that. Well, I was coming up this past March to New Life Baptist here in Ypsilanti. Brother Bob Mack is the pastor there, and on my way up there that Sunday morning, the pastor of that church called me and said, our church has now bought, in our mission conference, 25 rolls of paper. You go, wow, because it is a wow. Now, I'm glad this church broke that record, because some church out in Albuquerque, New Mexico held the record, and I thought, well, we got to bring that record to Ohio. The great state of Ohio, and we finally did. Now I challenge Wolverine State. See if you can break that record of 25 rolls of paper. Because if you can, I'm going to go back to that church in southern Ohio and see if they'll break it again. Another personal record, we turn these into coin banks. I've now left over 1,500 of these coin banks in my travels. The church that took the most coin banks was Massillon Baptist Temple and College and Christian Day School in obviously Massillon, Ohio. They took 34 of these in one service and were filling them up. I challenge the Wolverine State. Break that record. From a Buckeye to a Wolverine. Hey, you could. I'd be happy for you, because then I would go back to Massillon Baptist and say, look what that church up in Michigan did. And see if I could flame the passion of competition there. The church that has collected the most change in pounds or weight was a church in Columbus. One year they did 82 pounds. Anybody still weigh 82? That'd be nice, right? The next year they did 450 pounds. The year after that they did 575 pounds of change. They had 5-gallon buckets all the way across the front of the auditorium that they had filled up. And they were trying to teach the children the importance of missions. Well, that's a lot of weight, folks. There was so much weight that the TRACT League took it to their bank in Lebanon, and it burned up the coin counting machine at the bank. True story. And they had to order more parts to get it, the final count in, but that was thousands and thousands of dollars that came in to print gospel tracts to go around the world. Now, I was in a church in Rensselaer, Indiana. Now, I looked where that was, and I'm telling you, I just didn't like that location. Nope. Sunday school started at 8 a.m. When pastor hears about this, don't get any ideas, right? Right, folks? 8 a.m. Sunday school. So I had to get up really early from Columbus and drive over there. And I gave my presentation like I'm doing now. And after the service, a 14-year-old girl came up to me, a little teenage girl, and she said, Brother Lapis, can I have one of these coin banks? Now, I have one here, I have 2 back there. They are free. You don't even have to ask. You can take one and start filling it up on your own. She asked if she could have one, and I said yes. Now, you're probably wondering why I didn't care for Rensselaer, Indiana. Well, I looked where it was, and I had to pass through to get there, a town called West Lafayette. that falling on deaf ears? Anybody know what Big Ten school is in West Lafayette? Anybody? Purdue! The only Big Ten team to beat Ohio State last year was Purdue. So I have a gripe with that area. Now after we play them again and beat them, I will like them all over again. You know, so I went there despite that, and the girl took it, and I got a text from the pastor later that afternoon that she had gone door to door all Sunday afternoon, and she got this thing all filled up with change and checks and bills. That's how she spent her Sunday afternoon. Is that not amazing? See, when we'd have youth activities in Columbus, I mean, Columbus, 2 million people now is pushing. And there's all kind of things to do. And sometimes my youth group got a little spoiled. We going to do that again? Can't you find something new? That spoiled attitude. But we'd go down to the track league and they'd have a blast because there was something spiritual. If you want something spiritual, you've got to go. Or I challenge people. Put the boys against the girls on a Saturday afternoon, have a big cookout, and the winners get steak and the losers get dogs, beans and dogs. And it'd be amazing how much money that your youth group could raise. I was in one church for the first time last summer in Cresaptown, Maryland. They had never heard of the track league. They took 2 coin banks that Sunday because the next day they were starting Bible school, and they pitted the boys against the girls, and between them both they raised $1,000 in 4.5 days for worldwide missions. So the missionaries could get them free. Now, how many think the boys brought in the most? Okay? Yeah, come, put them on! Be a man! No! The girls brought in $800 and the boys only got $200. And Pastor Jeremiah, I thought for my 30 years pastoring that the men had the money. I guess I was wrong. The sisterhood has all the money. I don't know where you ladies are hiding yours, but I think my wife has a private stash somewhere. It's amazing. When I go somewhere, my wife has always forgot her purse. Oh, she got that one figured out real early, didn't she? I have a blast in doing what I do, and if each one of those coin banks averages $50 a year, about $1 a week, 50 times 1,500, that's about $75,000 a year. Comes in the track league to print hundreds and hundreds of rolls of paper, tens, maybe hundreds of millions of tracts that people will get all over the world. If you want to put your money on a horse that wins, you're looking at him right now. There are some people in the ministry who are takers, and there are some who are producers. I have always prided myself in being a producer. Whether I pastored or whether I traveled, my heart, my passion, and my zeal and love for this ministry is just as strong as it was when I pastored that church for 30 years. And I get a chance to impact more lives and more churches than I ever would have if I would have stayed at my church. So I'm in God's perfect will. I get many opportunities to speak to Christian schools and youth groups and all type of activities, and I take that as a real blessing. And also to get these coin banks out. We'd love to have you take one. I have my last 3 with me tonight. If your church, maybe there's 10 of you who want one, or more than that, or less than, we'll mail them here to you, and you can have this. I have so many stories I can tell about this. I do have some gospel tracts I want to share. Here's one in Messiah. That's track 164. Are we good? There it is. Wow! Are you from Michigan, Pastor Jeremiah? He got that really quick. Is he from Michigan? Boy, why do I have this one up? Well, my mom's people came from Sweden. And her mother, my grandmother, died when my mom was 6 years old. She was being raised by her 16-year-old sister and her alcoholic father in downtown Cleveland. One day, my mom wandered and went into a building that was called the Hebrew Mission that was started by fundamental churches trying to reach the Jewish people in Shaker Heights. Well, on that particular day, they did not reach any Jewish people, but more importantly to me, they reached a little Gentile Swedish girl, my mom, Harriet Mabel Manson. She went home, told her sister got saved. They told their alcoholic father, my grandfather, he got saved. My mom grew up, became a professional ice skating teacher. She taught one of the Olympic winners. Anybody heard of Peggy? Yes, my mom taught her. Now you think more highly of me. She ended up going to Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, in your great state. Oh, did I just say great? Oh, if any of my Buckeye people hear me call Michigan great, they'll drop my support. In your great state of Michigan, she went to Sault Ste. Marie, met her future husband, my dad, Arthur Philip Lapish. She came off the ice from figure skating. My dad came on the ice because he was ice hockey. Michigan Tech grad, civil engineer, World War II vet. And they started flirting, they dated. Then all of a sudden my mom looked up. See, Dad was 6'3", 250 pounds. You say, Brother Lapish, what happened to you? Mom was 4'11", barely 100. Thanks a lot, Mom! Man! She looked up, she says, Arthur Philip Lapish, I can no longer date you. And he looked way down and says, Harriet Mabel Matson, why not? She says, you're not saved. He says, saved? What are you talking about? This is tract number 119. My dad had grown up in the Roman Catholic Church. He had never heard the true gospel. He ended up going to a Baptist church in the Upper Peninsula of your great state of Michigan. Am I winning brownie points out? Somebody kind of, you warming up to me now? He got saved. They got married. And they raised a home of 4 children in Cleveland for the glory of God. I think I may have grown up in the most wonderful Christian home in the history of our planet. I had a dad who was sold out, a mom who was sold out. We went to the Parma Heights Baptist Church. We never missed a service. We couldn't wait to get to church. We had family devotions all the time. Mom read the Daily Bread and her King James Bible every day. I would check the pages, and she was on the right page of the right day, and her Bible was open to the right chapter, and all the kids were very, very ministry-minded. And I'm telling you, God just gave me a great family. My dad and Mom, they hugged me every single day. They repeatedly told me they loved me. There was no arguing or yelling or screaming aloud in our home. And I could go on and on about the great love and security that I felt in growing up in that home. I think that's why God sent me to the inner city of Columbus for 23 of my 30 years there. Because God wanted me to share what my dad and Mom shared with me with those people who came from severely broken homes. And I think that's why we started the Christian school down there, to kind of bring homes back together and heal that area of Columbus, Ohio. So I wanted to highlight that tract. Number 1 tract we have coming in is tract 103. All this I did for thee. This tract, particular tract, had come back from the Philippines where 17 people signed it that they had read it, repented of their sins, and accepted Christ as their Savior. That's 1 tract. Don't you wish you would have bought that roll of paper? And I wonder, what happened to the other 124, 999 other tracts? Went to the Philippines. I wonder how many were saved because of that. See, what does the profit a man if he gained the whole world and lose what? His soul. Do you believe that? If you believe that, you should buy a roll of paper. No amens? You leaving me hanging? Full disclosure, my wife and I, we buy a roll of paper every year. We are sold. And my scripture tonight was in Matthew 6. Jesus said in verse 19, lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures where? In heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Where's your treasure tonight? Is it in things, carnal things, worldly things, material things that are just going to pass away? Or is your treasure in heaven? Because where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. It doesn't say where your heart is, your treasure is. No, that's the wrong order. Where your treasure is, your heart is. You see, our heart follows our treasure. And for most of the men, we sit on our treasure. A lot of the ladies, you sling it around your shoulder and you carry it with you. Could that be your treasure? See, we got to get over the earthly treasures. And we need to be laying up treasures in heaven that will last for eternity. And you can all be part in that. There's not a reason why every adult in this room and every young person couldn't get a roll of paper bought by next year at this time if you just went online and gave $25 a month in 11 months. Well, let's just skip Christmas. In 11 months, you will have bought a roll of paper that at the bare minimum reaches 125,000 people. People get saved. Now, maybe not as quick in America, but outside of America, people are getting saved at a lickety-split rate. Can you see yourself doing that and laying up rewards? Are you a Christian? I'm going to go quick here. That's track 105. The good one just to leave. When people pick it up, the question is asked, are you a Christian? Here's track number 112. God's last name is not a cuss word. Why is it that it's okay for TV, radio, billboards, people in school to take our Lord's name in vain and blaspheme the wonderful and great name of Jehovah God Himself, but nobody ever takes Allah or Muhammad's name in vain? I don't get that. One reason I found out that people don't get saved is track number 114. They think they're pretty good. Oh no, they're a sinner. So you got to get them lost before you get them saved. Here's one, be a winner. For all the young people who like to win, we have a track for you. Christmas is coming up. We print tens of millions of our Christmas tract. That's number 142. God loves the youngborn. This is track number 148. We could spend all day on this one. Those states on the East Coast that voted a child, even after that child is born, can have its life taken from him. And they cheered about it when they passed it in their state senate. How can God spare judgment on America for that crime? Have you believed another gospel? This is tract 149. We have tracts for Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons too. Why I choose to abstain from alcohol. I'm in some churches where pastors are very concerned. This is tract number 169. Go get that up. Pastors are very concerned because their young people and young couples start going out to BW Wild Wings and they start to tip a few cans of beer watching the game, and they think that's just social drinking. My Bible says wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. Amen. But we need to bellow that out. It'd be a terrible thing if someone here tonight is socially drinking. It is wrong. It is a sin. Repent of it, or God takes His judgment on you. For our military, we have one, final orders. We love our military. My dad was in the Army, World War II. We have one in hospitality. The military one, I keep thinking he knows is 182, and the one in hospitality is 184. You leave this, when you go out to eat, you put a nice tip in it. You put your church name in the back of the tract so they know where to come. Now listen, if you're a crummy tipper, do not put your church name on the back. So, well, whose name should we put on? Put your pastor's name. He'll love that when he hears that tonight, won't he? These are just a few of our tracts. We have a great ministry. And the ushers did have some of my prayer cards. Brother Dave, some of you didn't get that, so if you'll do that. And these two guys, come here guys. Hand these out, maybe about every 4 rows. These are our on-track magazines. They come out every quarter. Boy, look how fast they're moving. Do you move that fast for your mom and dad? One each side of the auditorium, about every 4 rows, and people can look at those. That would be fine. And look how excited they are. Oh my, what a great church. Exciting teenagers. We now have this 6-minute DVD. Some of the facts you're going to hear are not what I told you because this DVD is 6 years old. Their new one is coming out right around Thanksgiving. So you can see what goes on there. I hope you'll pray about this and be involved. There's a man in Dallas-Fort Worth who sits in front of the License Bureau every day, 5 days a week, and he hands out between 200 and 600 tracts. Oh, I didn't tell you, he's 89 years old. Let me tell you something else. He's in a wheelchair. Is that humbling and convicting? It is to me, and I tell that story a lot. I do have that letter with me if someone would like to read that and be blessed because of it. Again, about 6.5 minutes, and then Pastor Jeremiah, I am done, and I will stand at this door to greet hands. I'll just leave this bank up here, and maybe Sunday school teachers or youth group, maybe somebody wants to take it home, and once they're gone, we'll be glad to mail you as many as you want. Hey, thanks for being kind to a Buckeye. I will take the good news back to my state.